Hi there, it's Riikka Kovasin here with my September project for Nathalie's Creative Squad. The theme this time was Wish You Were Here, and I made a little album which I called Layers of Reminiscence. Most of the colors and textures in this journal are inspired by my memories of my maternal grandmother. She passed away some odd 20 years ago. I wanted to combine paper and textiles in this journal, so I made the covers using craft felt, and then I made the spine using polymer clay. This one is called Fimo Leather Effect, so after baking the clay will still stay somewhat soft and bendable, so in my book that made a perfect spine. By making that spine out of a clay allowed me to add pattern to it. So I first rolled the clay into a thin sheet and then pattern it using plastic wrap, and then one stamp by Nathalie called Love Knots. I also used polymer clay to make some embellishments. For these I used a black Fimo Soft clay and roll it a little bit thicker than the piece I used for the spine of the album. And again I used stamps to make some pattern to it. These stamps are from the fantastic small cling stamp set. To make the pattern more visible, I then added some mica powder on top, and while baking the clay, the powder will stick to it. While the polymer clay was baking in the oven, I made a piece of pattern paper. I'm using the same stamp set as with the polymer clay, the fantastic small cling stamp set, and 4 different inks. I'm mixing the patterns but also mixing the colors by stamping multiple times on the same spot, so you can't really see the pattern that well or the individual pattern that well, but they make this kind of hazy pattern or a pattern of their own. This was inspired by a dress I recall my grandmother sometimes using. I'm stamping the pattern to a piece of cardstock where there's some red paint residue. When I then had the piece patterned, I cut it to the size of the front cover, or actually a bit smaller, and used a strip of that material to the back cover. I'm using sewing machine to get everything connected. After that, the polymer clay bits were back, and I'm using the spine to connect the 2 covers. But first, I'm using black gesso to enhance the pattern a little bit. So I'm painting the piece using the black gesso, and while still not totally dry, I'm using a damp rag to remove the paint from the raised parts, so it will stay in the grooves and thus highlight the pattern I've created using the stamps. Then I make 4 holes to the spine to be used for the elastic band that will hold the inner pages in place, and then again I'm using sewing machine to connect the covers to the spine. Now that I have all the pieces together, it's time to decorate. For that I'm first adding a piece of the black clay, which I patterned the same way as the thicker pendant versions. I'm using a sturdy thread to adhere that piece to my cover. When making that piece, I also made sure that I had holes to add a bead on top. So there's the bigger holes for me to attach the ring to the front cover, but there's smaller holes for me to attach that red bead in place. When I was done with stitching, that is that I had the red bead and also the bigger element in the front cover, I then turned my attention to the pendants, let's say. I used some jewelry parts to make little dangling embellishments for the spine, and in this last bit in this video I'm then attaching these to the spine. So there's a ring binding them all together, and then I used a various glass beads to decorate. So there's the pendants and also some ready beads. And here you can see the finished little album. I'm still not totally sure what I'm going to do with the insides. My first idea was to document my memories of my grandmother and grandfather, but I'm not sure. I'm kind of letting the project lead me and what it wants to become. But here's the shot of the finished piece and also some detail shots. I hope you like this video. A little bit different stamping with these materials. If you like the video, please consider subscribing. Thank you for watching. See you again. Bye bye.